Awesome, Yashasvi. We're live now. Thank you so much.
So, hello everyone, and a really warm welcome. Since we still have a few minutes to go, it'd be great if all of us could introduce ourselves. We could write a small message about ourselves in the chat box, write your name, from what city you're from, and what you expect in this webinar today. So, we have Sakshi from IIT Kharagpur, we have Priyanka from Welltech Chennai. That's amazing, guys. Are you all planning to do MBA abroad, or what is your next step here? Others who've joined in now, you all can start introducing yourselves in the chat box too. So for the ones who've just joined in, we have a chat box where we want every participant to introduce themselves, say where you're from and what you expect from this webinar. Hello everyone and a warm welcome to one and all. Since we have a few minutes before we start the webinar, it'd be great if all the new participants could register themselves and if you could introduce yourselves in the chat box and tell us what you expect from the webinar today. So we already have a few questions and a lot of people introducing themselves in the chat box. So if you haven't introduced yourself yet, it's time to do it now.
Natika, I think Puneet sir has joined, so please get Puneet sir on the panel and also make him a co-host so we can turn his video on.
Yes, sure.
Hello, hi, good evening, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Hi, sir. Thank you so much for joining.
Thanks, Neha. So Sumit is just joining 2 minutes, yeah?
Sure.
Good evening, everyone. So we'll just start in 2-3 minutes.
just.
Natika just
I'll make.
makes her also a panel.
Hello, sir, and a really warm welcome to you today.
Hi, it's wonderful to join. Just give me a moment. I'm going to share my screen.
Yes, sir, no problem.
Hopefully you can see my screen.
Yes, sir, we can see it.
Great.
So now that we have everyone here today, let's start. So, hello and a very warm welcome. I am Natika Daruka. Today we are here for an exciting webinar with Mr. Sumit Warlekar. Before we start, I would like to hand over to Sneha Ganesh, the member of Aspire for Her, who would like to introduce more about AFH and tell you what it actually does. Over to you, Sneha.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, Sneha, we can.
Okay, perfect. A very warm welcome to all the 57 of you who've joined very punctually. Really happy to see all of you. And a very, very warm welcome, Sumit sir, to you as well. And yeah, before we begin, I thought I'll just give a little bit of an introduction to Aspire for Her and what we do. So Aspire for Her is a not-for-profit organization. We're about 9 months old right now, pretty young, but we're growing very, very rapidly. And we're extremely excited to have all of you to be a part of this amazing community of ours. Aspire for Her mainly aims to help girls in the age group of 18 to 25 by providing them a variety of career resources as well as interactions with mentors and senior professionals like Sumit sir, so we can help you get to that dream career of your choice. We have a variety of resources from learning, jobs, and a whole lot of webinars like these, which we do for you very regularly. So make sure you join us if you haven't joined us as yet. We will be sharing links in the chat box to which you can join us at Aspire for Her. And keep the interaction going and hope you guys have a great session.
Thank you, Sneha. Today's session is in joint collaboration with IMS and MyCaptain. We have Mr. Aromal from MyCaptain. So, without further ado, let's introduce our guest today. Mr. Sumit Varlikar is a Berkeley MBA alumni and currently the Chief Business Officer at IMS CIE. Previously, he has worked for Fortune 100, Fortune 500, and various prestigious consulting firms. He is working with IMS CIE to help and guide aspirants who want to study abroad, particularly in the Ivy League and other top universities. We welcome you, sir, today.
Thank you.
So, every AFH member attending the webinar today, we have something amazing for you, a 20% discount on all of IMS courses and scholarships. The link with the scholarship and the 20% discount will be shared in the chat box really soon. Now, I would like to hand over to Sunit sir, who would take this further. Over to you, sir.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity. It's always wonderful to connect with young, vibrant people like yourselves. Thank you for the introduction. I've actually had a very interesting career as was introduced. It was kind of, I've basically been in corporate. I'm sure that a lot of you guys aspire to be in a lot of these top-notch corporate companies, and I've kind of have made a decision to really sort of follow my passion. Right, everybody has to ultimately follow their passion. Education is my passion. It's something that gives me the kicks. It makes sure that I remain excited, and it's something that I'm very very uh, happy about. I'm very proud about that, and in that endeavor, if I'm able to help and touch any of you guys in terms of helping you and mentoring you, I'll be more than happy. So that's something that So just one very quick thing. I'll just add a little bit about this. There's obviously a lot in here, so I'll not really spend too much time on it. So what I basically do is, of course, besides my association with the studying abroad and mentoring people, I also am an investor. I invest in a lot of startups, especially in the Silicon Valley. I'm also a Berkeley alumnus and interviewer. Uh, what would probably make this session a slightly different than sort of similar sessions that you may hear elsewhere is my ideas and all the observations that I'm going to be sharing with you have come from real experiences. It's not something that I've read on the internet. It's not knowledge which is something that I've gleaned on and read and presenting. These are real students. These are real insights that I have gleaned as a Berkeley MBA interviewer, having the privilege of being in this very amazing network of people from the top 10 to 15 schools in the world, in the US, in Europe, in India, right? Some of my best friends, for example, in India, hail from Harvard Business School and Kellogg, right? So when you kind of are in that community, when you're interacting with people day in and day out, when you basically have investment sessions with the startups along with all these people who are also fellow angel investors, you learn a lot about business and life, etc. But I think what is kind of been also remarkable is that in addition to these insights with these real people, I've also served as the interviewer for Berkeley, and I know the admissions process fairly intimately. Having interacted with literally more than 500 to 1,000 odd students over the last decade, correct? The data enthusiast in me decided about 6 7 years back to really start mining this data, right? People came from different countries, people came from different backgrounds, males and females, engineers and non-engineers, different variety of GPAs, different variety of GMAT scores and GRE scores, right? So who gets in, who does not, right? All of those things are things that we don't really have time, because there's a huge volume of data that I've been able to synthesize, particularly about Indian applicants. Okay, and I can tell you that there are a lot of things which are out there. There are consultants which are out of India who would say, okay, do this and you will get in. But I have found through my experience that those things do not, do not measure up when it comes to the Indian applicants who have a very unique sort of a background, and they come from a very different sort of place as such. So taking something as a cookie cutter approach and applying it to every applicant, and hoping that this person will succeed, especially in as competitive a pool as India, is something that I feel has always given people suboptimal results, right? So my effort today is really going to be talking about the general principles, but at the same time talking about how does it sort of imply, like what does it imply for Indian applicants? So most of you guys would be from India. So that's basically what we're going to be talking about. Of course, I've worked with a lot of different companies. I've worked in consulting with BCG. I've worked in CS. I've worked in Unilever. I've worked in Abbott. So I've basically worked in a variety of different places. I've also had an internship, with a bulge bracket investment bank in NYC. So I can talk about a lot of different fields, and I'm happy to kind of talk about any career related or admissions questions that you may have at the end of it. Okay, so without further ado, let's get going. Again, this basically slide which talks about, it's basically I'm walking the talk. I have been fortunate to score quite well on both the GMAT and the GRE. I scored on the 99th, and I was able to get admits into these top 5 schools, right? And you see 4 out of them, these 4, and there's also Oxford, where I got admit. So these the experiences that I've got comes from the good and also the bad, the mistakes that I made as an applicant, which I'm more than happy to share with you so that you don't make those same mistakes. All right. So when you're talking about this entire thing is about how do you crack into top schools, right? So in the past, it was Ivy League, then it was called M7. Now in close circles, the ones that I basically belong to, we call it the super elite schools. So these are really the 12 elite schools, which are considered as, sort of being in a slightly different league, right? Most of them are from the US, as is understandable. There is also INSEAD and London Business School, right? It does not mean the rest of the schools which may not have been included here are not good or elite. In fact, they are very, very good. Yeah, unlike in India, where there is a stacked ranking for everything, right? So if you crack the IIT JEE advanced and you are ranked in the top 10 in India, where would you go, right? You don't even have to think. You would go to IIT Bombay, computer sciences, right? Because the entire society has these rankings and society makes these decisions for you, right? I have not come across anybody who has scored really well, let's say in the IIT, and said, you know what, IIT Bombay, the culture doesn't fit with me, right? And hence I choose not to go and join IIT Bombay, correct? That type of a thing does not happen in India, right? If there is another exam which is called a CAT, which is meant for admissions into IIMs, right? Now, if you are going to be the CAT topper, correct, where will you go, right? How many of you, for example, would say, you know what, I got into IIM Ahmedabad, let me reject it because you know what, it's not the right school for me. How many of us say that? I have not come across anyone, honestly. Maybe there are a few of you, but I've not come across anyone, right? So again, the society, the general perception of the school, the ranking makes that decision for yourself, right? Now, let me tell you about a wonderful story. It's only about half a minute of story, right? There was this one guy, okay, who's a very, very good friend of mine. He's a white American male, okay? This guy applied, believe it or not, to 10 different schools, okay, in a single application cycle. He got rejected in 9 out of the 10 schools and only got, the poor fellow got only admitted in one school. Isn't that unfortunate, right? But the school that he got into was Harvard Business School, and he got rejected by the 9 other schools. Would that ever happen in India? Would you get into NMIMS and get rejected? Would you get into IIM Ahmedabad but get rejected by NMIMS? Would it ever happen here? It would not, because of the system, because of the way the evaluation of applications is done, where there is a particular way that we expect students to come through, which is acing the test and so on and so forth, right? So the first thing that you have to understand is that yes, there are many, many, many cases where you get rejected by a school ranked 20th and accepted by HBS, Stanford, Wharton, Berkeley, and any of these top schools. Okay, so that is what makes this process very, very different from what you have traditionally encountered in India. And being able to appreciate that this process is very different, right, is one of the most important steps in being able to become a successful applicant for this particular, for these kind of schools, right? Now, here is something that, I'm sure that you guys are accustomed to, the rankings, right? So the US news ranking is considered widely the most representative ranking of the top schools. This is of course only for the US schools, but in any case, the cream of the cream who want to pursue the MBA typically would only prefer US schools. A lot of them would not want to consider applying to a London Business School or a INSEAD, right? Again, very good schools, but it's just what I've seen as a trend. It's basically the US schools and then the other schools, right? So anyway, so these are the schools. The rankings keep changing. This is a 2019 ranking. The 2020 is very, very similar. So you basically see all the elite schools that I mentioned, almost out of the top 10, I would say all the ones in the blue rectangle there are some of these schools, right? So that's something. Now, if you look at Financial Times, which is a London-based ranking, right? And consequently has a bit of a bias in ranking certain European schools higher than the US schools. So you would see a LBS or I would say IESC, right, which is in Barcelona, all ranked, right? But again, you see still out of that, 9 out of 10 of these super elite schools are all in the part of the Financial Times ranking also, right? So basically what the summary is that these schools dominate rankings across, irrespective of what ranking you see. Okay, all right. Why do people really aspire to join these schools, right? Again, you might be knowing this, but pretty much these schools can get you anywhere you want to. right? Whether it's consulting, whether it's venture capital, private equity, some of the hardest jobs to get into, right, are private equity and VC jobs. But these schools have the network and have that kind of brand to really get you into some of these kind of industries as well, right? So this is something. So when you join those kind of schools, you're kind of honestly in a slightly different league there. Just have a quick look at the brands of the employers, right? These are the employers who would typically routinely go to these campuses and recruit, right? So there is also this entire sort of misconception of sorts that the foreign schools don't have on-campus placements. That is not true, right? The MBA schools, and I'm talking about MBA. When I'm saying MBA, I'm really talking about people who have more than 5 years of experience, right? For a lot of you guys, you may not have that experience. So for you, it would be the Masters in Management or the deferred MBA program. The deferred MBA is only meant for people who are final year students, right? So that you can apply to all these elite schools if you if you apply for the deferred MBA. The deadlines are typically around April, right? So this coming April, there will be deadlines. So you will, if you want to apply, you still have 4 or 5 months to apply, and it's a great time to start, right? The Masters in Management, again, all programs that we call MBAs in India are not MBA programs, right? They are Masters in Management program. They are MIM programs. Why is it? Why is IIM Ahmedabad not an MBA? And why is it MIM? It is because MBA by definition is are schools which only have people with experience as their in their class, right? So when you see a lot of freshers, a lot of people who are recent graduates can join IIM Ahmedabad without any problems, right? So that is the reason all of these Indian elite schools are indeed MIM programs, not MBA programs, right? But I'm sure that you probably knew that. But if not, don't think that MIM is any lesser than an MBA. It's just that the kind of jobs that you get, whether local or entry level managerial jobs versus should I say uh, parallel lateral jobs that you get in global MBA programs, plus local jobs versus global jobs, right? That's the biggest difference between the MBA, global MBA, global MIM, and our Indian MIM programs. Okay, so let's kind of look at the placement and salaries. This is again for MBA. For MIM, it would be slightly different. But again, for those of you who are thinking of getting that work experience, right? This would be a very welcome statistic. In fact, it's very interesting. If there was so I write on Quora as well, and there was this post that I've written is it worth doing a second MBA from the top schools after you have an MBA from an elite school in India? And I can tell you there are many IIM Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Calcutta, and indeed lot top 10 Indian MBAs who choose to pursue a second MBA in any case because of global careers. They basically see themselves being at a hierarchy where obviously you will probably take 15-20 years to get there, versus a global MBA can get you there in about 5-7 years, right? So all these reasons are why people, even nowadays when I'm saying probably about last 15 years, I've seen a lot of people pursuing second MBA. In fact, in my class there were about 15 double MBAs, and almost all of them were from IMABC, right? So that would tell you the worth of these schools when it comes to even the people who have gone to IIMs, and definitely a lot of IITians and a lot of strong people from strong campuses like NMIMS, JBIMS, a lot of the St. Stephens of the world, the LSRs, all of these, St. Xavier's Bombay, St. Xavier's Calcutta. We see people routinely from these schools applying for an MBA programs because they know what level they are wanting to get into, right? Uh, the placement and salaries are of course world class. You basically see that for super elite schools we basically have about close to $200,000 as your starting salary. The other schools outside of India, again this is not India, is about 132. So there's almost close to a $50,000 gap if you get into some of these better schools versus the other schools. Okay. Right. One of the key things is what is my ROI. So typically, for a lot of these elite school alumni that I just mentioned, you would typically pay off your education loan in about 2 years. I did that in about 6 months after graduation. But in general, it's around 2 to 3 years, right? After that, you're basically going to be earning in dollars and saving a heck of a lot of money. Of course, if you're wanting to buy a Rolls Royce and wear Prada every day, you're probably not going to save money. So it's an individual choice. Of course, I'm just making a bit of a light moment there. Anyway, so the others basically typically take around 5 to 7 years, right? So that's kind of where we are. You get a chance to join unprecedented scale of an alumni network. So these 4 schools, and I've put my school there just to kind of set the tone there. It's about 200 plus countries where say HBS, Harvard Business School, and the UC Berkeley have the alumni there. 200 countries. Do you guys know what that is? It's basically more than the number of teams which participate in the Olympic Games, right? So that just kind of gives you an insight of what kind of network are you choosing to join if you apply to these schools. All right. And of course, Stanford, INSEAD. These are just some example. And of course, these are household names. Again, you actually get to talk with these guys, and I'm not kidding you, right? For example, I personally have interacted with Joe Jimenez. If you look at the guy on the extreme right-hand side for Berkeley, right? He is the global CEO, used to be the global CEO of Novartis worldwide, based out of Switzerland, right? So he is kind of Arun Sareen, who is the ex-global CEO for Vodafone, right? So these are people that I have had the privilege of actually interacting and leveraging the network to reach out to, right? And they are absolutely open. Of course, you've got to show the maturity and the persistence to really kind of go. But these people, you really can reach out to them, and they can, of course, can get their words of wisdom and whatever necessary support you need in your career or in general, right? So basically, because of what these schools offer, they have slightly different expectations, right? Which are different from a lot of the other schools. So how do you really get an admit to these schools, right? So let's look at the easiest way is to look at the class profiles, right? So you look at the test scores. So typically people tend to score quite well, as around 720 plus. The European schools typically noticeably require slightly lower scores. Okay, the GPA is almost A minus. The work experience is around 4 to 5 years. But as I mentioned to you, if you are someone without work experience, right, and most of you guys would be, I would say that you can apply to global MIM programs and also apply to the deferred MBA programs, provided you are in your final year. Okay, so that's basically where we are looking. What the schools look for. The employer profile. A lot of them really are working for very prestigious employers. So almost in HBS, for example, I know for sure that close to 25% of the class have worked in the past for BCG, McKinsey, and Bain, right? More than 50% admits have a recognizable employer brand on their resume. Why is this the case? We will discuss later. Okay, strong leadership experiences, good career progression, remarkable extracurricular society involvement. Okay, the key word is remarkable. Okay, stellar recommendations from managers, rewards and recognitions. So these are things that set you apart. Okay, and finally legacy, right? If you have your parents, your brother, somebody, a family history of someone in your family who's gone there, it can benefit you. All right. So we've been taught that the test is important, right? Right. One of the first steps that you will do is to make sure that you try to ace the test, and it's very, very important. But what do you believe is the weight for GMAT for admissions to a top 10 school? Can you type it in the chat box and tell me what percentage, right? Is it 80%, 50%, 30%, 20%, less than 10%? Can you just type it in your chat box? I'm just keen to understand what you guys feel. We'll just give it a few minutes. All right, so we'll stop there. Thank you, guys. So while I don't have a calculator to type to basically figure out, but from what I see, you see a lot of 70, 65, 50, and there were a few 20s and etc. Right? So now what you will see will surprise most of you, right? So while the test is important, it usually has, if for these schools, around a 15 to 20% weight only. Okay. Please do not misinterpret this in thinking that the test is not important. It is extremely important, and I will show you some real data that will prove you why I'm saying that, right? Prove to you. But overall, it is not like the CAT. The study abroad process is completely different from the CAT, right? What will make you successful in a CAT application will probably be your pitfall if you approach the study abroad process in the same way, correct? Because there are so many other things for you, right, to be able to do and to showcase to get an admit, right? So you will also be surprised to know that if you look at these super elite schools, they reject a huge amount of applicants with who score extremely high, right? So my school, for example, we reject close to 88% of people who score in the 99th percentile on the GMAT. 88% get rejected without an interview. Okay, so that basically tells you that there is something else that is needed besides a good score, right? And why does somebody with a 730 get preferred over somebody who scores a 770, right? Why does somebody with a 660 get admitted into a top school, whereas somebody with a 99 percentile get rejected, correct? So these are things that what you have to simply know is that in the study abroad process, no score can get you in. If you ace the GMAT fully, if you get an 800 on 800, or if you prefer to take the GRE, it doesn't matter whether you take the GRE or the GMAT. The schools don't care about it. Okay, but a low score, right, in anything, right? So no score can get you in. But if you get a low score, if you get like a 600, like less than that, the chances become remarkably lower, right? That's why it's important to have a higher score. Your score will get you in the mix, and that's why you should try to get a good score, but it's not going to be a differentiator, right? And you have to make sure that whether it's the essays, the interview, the work experience, the employer brand, all of these things, you've got to be able to showcase impact and leadership, right, in across all these things. So do you have the DNA, right? So here are the questions. Do you know what matters to you? What's your goal? And is it bigger than just you, right? If you want to be a CEO, big deal. You know what? The schools will say, we've got a lot of people like you. We've got a lot of people who want to be a CFO and a CEO. What's the big deal about that? I've got 99 other people saying the same thing. So why should I take you? Right? This may fly in India. You might even go in a traditional school process and say, I want to be a CEO or I want to be a VP, and people will be very happy about that potentially. I'm just assuming here, but I'm just saying that, right? Because we are very, very career and individual focused here. These people want to know what are you really going to do beyond yourself, right? So that just takes adds a completely different dimension to how you're going to be strategizing when you're applying to these schools, right? Do you relentlessly pursue? And it's not saying that yes, I relentlessly pursue, right? You have to showcase it with examples. Do you possess the action, right, orientation to achieve that matters to you, right? Or are you an armchair strategist? Are you good at only thinking and telling people do this and that, right? Or are you somebody who can think and then do it as well, right? The later would have a good chance of thriving into these schools, right? Can you do what matters while carrying everyone along, right? So when you work with others, you're not going to love everyone, right? You're going to actually hate a few people, a few colleagues of yours, or sometimes friends and sometimes even siblings, right? But can you really focus on the big picture and carry everybody along without burning bridges, which is called influencing, political suaveness, etc., right? So there are really 6 key things today, of course, that I can share. I have an upcoming webinar. If you connect with me, I can tell you, which is basically how do you decode essays specifically for Harvard and Stanford essays, right? Because it's very vague sort of prompts, which people really struggle, right? So I have an upcoming webinar on the 17th. If you want to get an invite for it, please connect with me. I will give you my contact details, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to pass on those details to you. All right. So without further ado, let's get into what makes a strong application, especially for these top schools, right? must score high in your tests. Now, why do I say that, right? Because they reject a lot of people. Why? Is because just look at Wharton. If you get a 700 score and below, you have approximately a 21% chance of landing an interview. If you score a 750 plus, your chances of landing an interview more than double. 1 out of 2 people with a 750 plus score in Wharton get an interview invite, which has a significant it's a significant step forward in getting an admit to these schools, right? These numbers keep on changing. These are the last 5-year averages that I'm kind of talking about, right? A low score is not going to keep you out, right? So if you're getting less than 700, don't be dismayed. Don't think, you know what, it's the end of the world, we're not going to get in. There are some people who get in, right? In fact, there is somebody that had independently pro bono helped someone 2-3 years back who was an NGO worker, had co-founded their NGO, got into Stanford with a 660, right? And a male that too. So you can see that it is possible, right? So, but a high score is undoubtedly advantageous. Okay, have a competitive GPA. Again, it's a no-brainer here. The average GPA for HSW, for example, is a A minus. Yeah. If you have a low GPA or a backlog, that's absolutely fine. You have to just be able to explain it and try and remedy it, right? By scoring high or taking courses where you get good scores. You got to network a lot. So past successful, when I've worked with people personally, I've seen typically people, the ones who actually got into these schools have started networking with the school alumni and students at least 6 months before they apply. Okay, and on an average, they've spoken to around 3 odd students. The exact ratio is 3.2 actually, but they've spoken a lot. They've reached out to a lot of these kind of students and alumni in an effort to understand the school better and get those really these insights which are not apparent after maybe an hour's internet research, right? Because everybody would be smart enough to do that in these schools. So how do you really get those insights? How do you uncover those insights that will give you an advantage while applying? So you leverage your professional personal network for it and seek whatever information you need regarding your goals, applications, etc. Right? Write inspiring and engaging essays, and these are tips which are also relevant for MIM, by the way, and also for your deferred MBA. Okay, so when an AdCom, right, this lady on your right, who sees your application through a magnifying lens, there are certain desirables that she is looking for and certain watchouts, right? First of all, they're looking for a well-connected story. Okay, where your past, your present, kind of automatically builds forward, right? They are very keen to understand what challenges you've overcome in your life, right? And challenges are not things like, okay, I had an exam but yet I volunteered for an NGO. No, that's not good enough, right? So it's got to be some real big challenge that you have been able to overcome in your life, right? If you don't have that challenge, I would not believe you. I think everybody has gone through tremendous challenges, and you just got to think about what are the type of challenges they are looking for here, right? uh, they will also look at you, and which is also, again, for example, which is a very common question, and this is even true for Indian applicants, right? If you go to an ISB interview, they will say, okay, why do you want to pursue an MBA and why ISB, correct? So they look for this, right? What these global schools will look for it is, besides MBA degree, are there other degrees or lack of these that you have considered, right? MBA is a substantial investment. It's a couple 1 to 2 years in length, and it's a lot of money. It's almost close to about $150,000, correct? And yes, you get cheap financial options, you get scholarships, you get all of that stuff, but still it is a substantial investment. So they want to make sure that you've thought through it. Okay. They will look for whether your knowledge about the school is superficial or profound, correct? Of course, if it is superficial, if you give me your essay, right, and you tell me, if I ask you why do you want to join Berkeley, you give me your answer, it will take me literally 20 seconds to understand if you really know my school or not. That's it, guys. Okay, and this is basically because I have that experience, right? Indeed, in fact, you research all the top schools and you come back to me and tell me, this is why I want to apply to Harvard or Stanford, and I can literally tell you within a minute whether your knowledge is superficial or whether it is profound or deep. That is just because of the very, very regular things that I have kept on hearing about these schools. The ADCOM also has in a similar position. They do not want, you do not want to give them a sort of an impression that you're just doing like, a general superficial research, right? And that's what you're going to be putting in your essay. That's what you're going to be talking about in your interview. It's got to be a much more mature, deeper discussion, right, with them to really be able to sort of break through. And finally, showcases the evidence of interest, correct? In India, we don't really do that. IIM Ahmedabad does not participate in fairs, right? These schools participate in fairs, correct? If you're not attended a fair or a alumni coffee chat or whatever, right, and you tell them that I'm interested in your school, good luck. They're not going to believe you because they'll say, oh, you know what? She's not even bothered to sit through one of my sessions. What is she talking about? She's saying she's interested. I don't think so, right? So these are very, very important things which really segregate and make the study abroad process very bespoke, very different, to different things, right? So when I'm working with people, these are some of the most important things that I'm conveying to them 12 months in advance, sometimes even 18 months in advance, right? When I tell them this is the plan, this is what you really have to go for, right? Building your profile, doing all these things, and really kind of getting on your way, so that when it comes to application time, all the boxes are checked, all the research is done, all the strategies are ready, and you're good to go, right? So that's very, very important. That's the approach that will really help you succeed. Okay, the watch outs are again generic stories, things like I want to be the CEO and stuff like that. It's okay, it's kind of 50% there and here and there. It's not really going to impress anyone beyond a point. If you don't justify why MBA, if you just say, yeah, I want to basically, want to get a managerial job, right? You know what? You can actually work and perform well and still become a manager, right? So why do you want an MBA? You know what I'm saying? And then superficial reasons for choosing schools, we've already delved into some detail. So the deal killer, right? Why people get, I mentioned that, like very people who score very high get rejected in all these schools. The main reason, to my understanding and my observation, is insipid and dull and uninspiring essays that they write. That's why they get dinged. Yeah. So the other thing which you have to think about is brands on your resume, correct? You've got to get a lot of brands on your resume. Working or interning with known brands talk volumes about your competitiveness, correct? Why is this important, right? Let's say, for example, let's say you have got an internship with Google, right? Your friend, right, who's your best friend, has got an internship with an unknown IT company, correct? Now, if both of you have similar profiles, correct, and if you're applying to these schools, who's going to stand out, right? It's going to be the person with Google. Why? Because she has shown that she has been competitive in the past, that she has potentially, I won't say defeated, but she's kind of, sort of been in front of the race outside, in a pool of maybe thousands of interested applicants, and got an internship or a full-time job with these elite companies, right? So you already are competitive, you already are elite in your own way. So let the application to these schools not be the first time that you show that you are competing in a very, very advanced level pool, right? So that's very important. Show how you will shake up things, right? What does that mean? You got to have a lot of good jobs sort of posted, right? From your managers, from your should I say the professors, etc. Whether you're a student or you've worked or you've interned, you should be able to showcase impact, right? So rewards, promotions, career progress are great indications of impact at work. Personal stories can also be used. Regular stories will most likely miss the mark, right? There is one other thing which is not here. Let me see if I'm there. Yeah, so we'll go to that. The other biggest thing, right, that I will advise you, correct, is something called a well-balanced profile, right? So if you ask 99.9% of people in India will tell you to get into a top global school, you need a well-balanced profile. I'm sitting here and telling you that if you have a well-balanced profile, you will not get into any school. Okay, so please don't aim for a well-balanced profile. Have one or two things in your application that stand out. Okay, when you are well balanced, what does it mean? Nothing stands out, you're well balanced, right? Remember, the class of each of the school is well balanced. The individual applicant is never well balanced, right? So if you, for example, want to get into investment banking, why the heck are you doing an internship with an NGO? Don't do it. Community service is not essential at all, right? So when I, for example, and it is important, by the way, I'm not saying community service or taking online courses or being able to do things is important, right? But for example, I'll just give you an example, right? You want to be an investment banker, right? Go to an NGO and do financial modeling for them, right? Help them figure out how to use funds better. Don't go and teach underprivileged kids English. You know what I'm saying? But what you basically see people all around me and say that, oh, you want to build your profile. You know what? Why don't you go to an NGO and volunteer there? Right? Ask yourself, does it even make sense? Right? Between what you're trying to do and the skills, right? So the reason why I'm saying this, and I aspire for her, is a wonderful NGO, correct? But the reason why I'm saying this out loud is that it is important that nobody tells you that within NGO select the right type of a role. That is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Don't choose an NGO just because you want to check in a box because people have told you, oh, you know what, those people look for community service and hence you need an internship. No. Okay. So when I get interviewed, and there was I won't name this person and I will not name the gender also because I don't want to be biased one way or the other. But when I saw the resume, I saw that this person had done so much community work, right? And I was like, okay, why do you do it? And this person was like, oh, you know what? I really am so interested and passionate about community work. I said, okay, if you're so passionate, why is it not your goal then? Right? And why, like, if you want to be an investment banker, show me the evidence of investment banking interest. But you're showing me like 5 or 10 internships in an NGO, or one internship in an IT firm, 1-2 internships in an NGO, correct? What does it mean, right? So it's very, very confusing when you're trying to do that. So just remember, there are a lot of people who will say develop a well-balanced profile, right? What my advice is, if that person is telling you to build a well-balanced profile, run away from that person, because this person has no clue absolutely what it takes to go and join a elite school, because a well-balanced profile is sure shot a deal killer for you, okay, for these schools. All right, now, do you guys remember speed dating? Have you guys participated in speed dating? Probably not, probably yes. All right, so speed dating, basically, I've probably given my secret away there a little bit, but basically it's where you basically meet other people from usually from a different gender, where you really get a minute to impress the other person and get a date. Yeah, you have 1 minute really to sort of pitch yourself, to sell yourself, right, in order to be successful. Correct. Now, if you have to be successful in speed dating, what's the cardinal rule? Huh? The cardinal rule is you've got to be able to gauge the personality of this person. You've got to be able to understand what this person probably is like. You don't really know because these are strangers, right? But you've got to be able to look at their body language. You've got to look at probably, the way they are groomed themselves, or what kind of clothes they're wearing, whatever it is, right? The way they talk about specific things, etc. That basically gives you cues, right? The problem is that when you look at schools, they all look the same. And I'm talking about this even for deferred MBA as well as for MIM programs, right? Uh, and this is true for India. For example, if you want to get the best finance jobs in India, where will you go, right? And usually people will say, I am Calcutta, I am Bangalore, blah, blah, blah. Well, some of the best finance jobs that you get in India are JBIMS and IIM Ahmedabad, right? But would you choose a JBIMS or IIM Bangalore? Not too many, right? So this is just an example of how people, just kind of think that all the schools are, the same, and they tend to sort of, all look for the same things: leadership, innovation, collaboration, engaged alumni, expertise. So you know what? This basically gives you, leads you to a common mistake where what you typically do, and I'm not saying you guys will specifically do it, but I've seen 99% of people, right? And I most of my network is IIT, right? So I can tell you that even guys from IITs, they basically work on something and then they copy paste it across schools, right? Which basically, what is the assumption there, right? All schools are sort of similar, right? I can make the first effort, I can make a SOP, I can make a essay, and I can just copy paste it, right? When I work with people, right, even the resume, guys, is different for every school, right? Are you going to have the same resume if you apply to McKinsey and Google, right? If you apply, let's say, to a job with Aspire to Her versus IMS, will the resume be the same? Will not, right? So you have to look at what is the end entity, how it is different, correct? And then accordingly customize every single word in your resume. I'm just trying to exaggerate when I'm saying every single word, but I hope you're trying to, you're getting what I'm trying to say. In reality, these schools are very unique, right? So I, over the last decade, have been able to identify around 15 to 20 parameters for every school in which they are different, right? Which is something that I used to guide and mentor people, right? A lot of the consultants in IMSCIE also use some of these parameters. If you look at, these schools are very, very unique. Harvard is really a superior sort of a culture. Stanford is not comparative, it is just great, right? Harvard is a school for CEOs. Stanford is not a school for CEOs, it is a school for founders, right? Harvard is a school for Fortune 100 people. Not to say that Stanford doesn't produce CEOs. In fact, my mentor, Miles White, who's the global CEO of Abbott, right, very close mentor of mine, is a Stanford MBA, by the way. So I'll just tell you that there are many CEOs who come out of Stanford, but in general, it's the founder. They're really looking for the next Larry Page. They're not really looking for the next I don't know who's the CEO you want to think, a Sundar Pichai, for example. They're not looking for the next Sundar Pichai. They're looking for the next Larry Page. You know what I'm saying? So that's important. Harvard is a school for Fortune hundreds, right, or the Fortune 500. Stanford is a school for startups, right? Harvard is about driven leaders. Stanford is very laid back. If you go to Stanford and Berkeley, you will see people with shorts and like people with t-shirts chilling in the lawn, sleeping there, not eating their lunch and stuff like that. There are those kind of people in those two schools. In Harvard and MIT, you will basically see a lot of people like who are very driven. They basically work, achieve, repeat, right? Inspiring others is, however, very, very important, right? So these are very little nuggets, guys. Yeah, I mean, it's something that it's very difficult to sort of really kind of pinpoint and identify these little insights, and there are many more. I've just given you 6. There are many, many more, right? So Harvard clearly is a school for general management and strategy, entrepreneurship, and Stanford is really for entrepreneurship and product management, product marketing, those kind of things, right? So if you knew all these, right, would you write the same things for Harvard and Stanford, right? The unequivocal answer is no, right? So that's basically what we are trying to say, is that you've got to research your schools well, right? In your research, you will find, and if you need to spend, that's why you need to start about a year and a half to 2 years in advance, before you apply. That's the ideal. Even I started close to about 2 years before I applied, right? Because you need that time to understand all these nuggets and insights. You've got to see, there are schools which prefer people with less experience. There are other schools which prefer science graduates versus non-science, and vice versa. There are certain schools which have preference for Indians. There are others which don't, right? Now, the schools will never say that. The data, you just have to research it and you'll know what I'm saying. Certain schools actually shy away from high GMAT, right? I'll give you an example, Michigan Ross, right? The probability of you getting an admit in Michigan is remarkably lower if you get a 740 plus score, which is a 97 percentile. Your highest probability of getting into Michigan Ross is if you have a score between 720 and 740. That confounds logic, isn't it? But that's what it is, right? So you just got to know that. For the heck of, I can't understand the last point, but that's what is coming out in my analysis, there are actually certain schools which prefer not to go behind toppers. And if you have a high GPA, you're probably not gonna, you have a lower chance of getting in, which again confounds logic if you think about it. But and the last one I can't explain, the others I can, right? But that is where it is, and these are the ones which you need to have at your fingertips to really be able to identify which is the school that you will shortlist, which is the school that you will apply to. You know what I'm saying, right? And there are many more parameters of research between schools, and you have to give it time and get expert help, right? That way. Here are some of the schools tools that I've written widely in Quora, right? Innovative tools. So you got to understand your target school focus areas and trends, right? So yeah, last year I worked with somebody who got into the Wharton deferred MBA program and also Stanford deferred MBA program. These are different people, okay? And incidentally, both of them are females, yeah. So which is good, yeah. Yay, go girls, right? So, but the point is, each of them had a very different sort of outlook, right? The one who got into Stanford was really wanting to get into a different area. The one who got into Wharton had a very different thing, right? So the one who applied to Wharton, we didn't have Stanford in our shortlist even, right? We didn't say, oh, Stanford is a top school, it has got to be in your shortlist, right? It was not the case. And the other girl who got into Stanford, right, did not have Wharton, in her shortlist, right? So that's basically what it was, right? Ultimately, so that's something that you got to know. What is your school? What your target? What your goal is? What is your focus area? And hence, use those strengths to your advantage. You appeal to your target school's DNA, which of course is easy for me to say because I've been doing this the last 10 years. But of course, you got to spend time to be able to do that, right? And finally, use things like double bubble. I call it double bubble. It's not, you can call it a Venn diagram, but really, it's basically the fit, right? What are the things that the school, so the left circle is basically what the school wants. The right circle is what the school, what you bring to the table, right? So if the school wants something, right, it's something that which you don't have, and if you are able to change that in your profile, right, you will be able to stand out, right? Because a lot of these other candidates also may not have that quality, or that thing. There are other things in your profile, right, which might be contrary, or maybe detrimental for you to use. So don't copy paste your resume. Think about, hey, you know what, I'm applying to HEC Paris, or I want to apply to INSEAD. What are the things that I should not put in my in my sort of resume, right? So there are specific schools which, for example, are very social impact minded, right? There are certain schools which do not like people who are social impact minded. And I'm not saying, when I'm saying not like, the probabilities, the data just simply shows that less people showing social impact sort of goals get into those schools, pretty much, right? So it's not a one size fits all kind of a thing. It really depends. And finally, gap analysis is, what does the school profile average look like versus how do you do, right? So that's basically what it is. This is just a screenshot of what I've written in Quora. You can of course go and kind of look at it. I've delved in great detail about specific schools and specifically what you should do for every specific school, whether it is Wharton, Stanford, Harvard, any of these other schools, right? And also not only MBA, but also in undergrad as well as in MS programs, right? Because I also guide people for MS programs, whether engineers or non-engineers. You got to customize your application. You got to begin with who you are, what you want to do, right? With versus looking at the ranking first and say that Harvard is 1, Stanford is 2, Wharton is 3. I want to apply to all the top schools. No, it doesn't happen that way, right? Research each school in depth, right? Make sure that the school insights. So for example, did you know, for example, if you have an entrepreneurial goal, the probability of you getting into the school rises manifold, right? But ask anybody around you, 99% of the people will not know this, right? So it doesn't mean you put entrepreneurship and you're guaranteed an admit. Not saying that, but you know what I'm saying, right? These are the insights which are hidden. They are not apparent. You've got to be able to uncover them. List out what you bring to the table, what the school expects, compare your profile, as I mentioned earlier, and then think of each application piece strategically. What do you want to communicate with your resume? right? Which is different from what you want to communicate with your, let's say the essays or the SOP or whatever it is, right? Are you repeating, rehashing the same information across all your pieces? In that case, you're missing a chance of adding something new to the school, isn't it? And what's the theme running through all these pieces? Is that theme supporting your goal, right? So is your application practical and memorable? So let's say, for example, if you're a BBA student, right, and you say that I want to go and join an investment bank, and what are you doing right now? You're doing digital marketing, right? How are you going to make the school believe that that is your goal? Because you've not done anything in finance, you've not done anything in marketing, right? So it's not something that is practical, right? You will basically get dinged because of that. So just keep all these things in mind, right? So with that, I think I've done my piece. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be sharing my contact information with you guys. Also, share the LinkedIn details, etc. But I'll hand it over to my colleague Puneet, to take you through the rest of the product features, etc. And towards the end, we will have a wide-ranging Q&A where I will try my best, no promises, but I'll try my very best to answer all the questions that you may have, right? So thank you so much. And I want to call out, I want to say hi to Madhura. I actually kind of noticed that you're here, after I started, but it's wonderful to see you, Madhura. As always, I think you and your team are doing a fantastic job. So thank you so much
No,
for
thank
this
you.
opportunity.
Thank you. I actually wanted to welcome you personally, and I was there, but somehow I wasn't audible or
No worries at
visible.
all.
So,
Wonderful.
but I've been here and wonderful. I think I have had a fantastic time, and we are very, very happy with the support that we are getting from IMS as a group.
Good.
Aspire for Her is really feeling inspired by the fact that the wealth of knowledge and insights that all of you are bringing for our members and supporters is wonderful. And I'm so glad that we're actually doing this with our partners, MyCaptain, because I
Awesome.
think every time we do these conversations, some more people actually get knowledge about what to do, what not to do. And I find your sessions quite fascinating. So it just takes me back many, many years. And it's lovely to have you, Sumit, as always.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Madhura, for the kind words. So thank you so much. It's always a pleasure. So with that, I will pass it on to Puneet.
And
I'm
there are
going to.
lots of questions. So I
Okay.
think you'll have to spend some time on these questions in the Q&A box.
Sure.
So
I'm more than happy to do that. Yeah.
yes.
All right, Puneet, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Sumit. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are.
Yeah, hi Madhura and hi Natika. So, thanks for the amazing session, Sumit. It was really wonderful. So, without taking much time, because we need to have more time for the Q&A session, so I'll quickly go through our programs. So, these are some of the successes we have for the MBA and MIM. So, you can see the GMAT scores we have 740, 750, and 1 month ago we had 780, and the admits we have. So we have admits in Harvard Business School, Stanford, Kellogg, HEC Paris for MIM, London Business School. So all the prominent colleges you can find here. Yeah. Next slide, please. Yeah. And the deferred MBA, so as Sumit pointed out, so most of you are in the final year or third year. So this is a like good enough program for you. So deferred MBA, we had Akshat Nagori who scored 760 and he got Yale Silver Scholar MBA admit. And we have Saman Siddiqui for the Stanford admit. So this is again a very good option if you are planning to do MBA after 2 years experience. So you can get the admit right now, but you need to join after getting your work experience and all. So right now you're in college, so you have more time to do the preparation for the exam and the application and stuff. Once you get into the industry, then obviously you'll have less time to spend for the preparation. So this is the right time for you to go ahead and prepare for GMAT, GRE, whichever test you're comfortable with, and then go ahead with the application. So once you have the admit, you can decide whether you want to go after towards or not. Yeah. These are all the successes with low scores also. So only, as Sumit pointed out, it's not just the GMAT which is the major requirement, but you all have the other stuffs as well. So your GPA, your profile, and what kind of activities you have done, extracurricular and community services. So it's a lot of stuff. Unlike in CAT, where you just have to get, let's say, 99 plus percentile for the IMA BC. Herein, GMAT is important, but not as much as CAT is important for IMA admission. So a lot of things are there which you need to focus on while application. So as you can see, we had admits for ESCPRS 650 GMAT also with the 5% tuition waiver, and even 590 admit for Johns Hopkins University with 50% tuition fee. So that's a very good university, and with that GMAT score, Sudha was able to crack it. So you can see the kind of like GMAT score. So even with less GMAT score, you can get the admit, because there are many more components, as Sumit pointed out earlier. Your resume, letter of recommendation, profile, and all that stuff. Yeah. Yeah. So these are the parameters on which we'll be assisting you guys if you come with us. So the first stage in your preparation will obviously the test prep. So whether it is GMAT or it is GRE, depending on like which test you choose, we will have a diagnostic test and the whole study plan. So 8 classes of math, 8 classes of verbal, like that. Plus you'll have the whole material in your online account. There will be 3 mentor sessions with the 99 percentile faculties we have. So all the experts, they have themselves taken the GMAT and GRE and scored very well. So they'll be the experts who'll be guiding you through the preparation plan. Apart from that, you'll be getting mock tests. So for GMAT, you'll be getting 15 mock tests, and for GRE, you'll be getting 10 mock tests. Then after the test prep comes into the picture, the application. So for the university application, we'll be assisting you with the B school shortlist. So 5 B school will be finalizing based on your profile, your scores, and then applying to them. And all the parameters which are needed in application will be assisting with you. So your resume planning, editing of that, then essay, then statement of purpose, letter of recommendation, application form review. So we'll be assisting with all of these to make a very good application from your side. After the test prep and application, the third part, which is the interview preparation. So we'll be conducting 2 mock interviews for you per the B school which you have shortlisted, and whatever the past repository we have, that will be shared with you, and accordingly will be scheduled the mock interviews for you. And the final step, that is scholarship and the visa guidance. So based on your profile, your scores, which universities, based on our past history, how much scholarship and what kind of essays you need to write for the scholarship, that will be provided to you. So this is a whole package once you enroll with us for the whole comprehensive plan. So all the test prep, consulting, everything will be taken care of. Now, to book a free one-to-one session, you can call on this number, and we will have the mentorship session for you. Yeah. So that's all from my side. If you have any query related to, let's say, GMAT preparation, GRE preparation, you can get in touch with us. Even if you have CAT related, then you can just call on that number, and one-to-one free mentoring slot that we can organize for you. Yeah.
That was amazing, sir. A very, very big, great thank you to Sumit sir and Paneet sir for the session today. Now we'd move on to the Q&A, the question answer session that we have from our audience. So the first question, sir, is a student wants to know if MBA is better to do in US or from a top B school in India.
So there is nothing better or worse. I think it depends on where you see yourself in the long run, right? If you want to basically build your career and stay all your life in India, no, obviously don't even apply for a global MBA. because the expenses are going to be in dollars, the salary is going to be in rupees. It doesn't make sense, right? However, if you see that in your future, you see yourself going out of India, right? Um, and you want to be a global CEO, a global VP versus a local VP, right? Then obviously it's a no-brainer. Then you have to apply for a foreign MBA. What I have seen is, if you look at simple statistics, right? Let's consider the best in India, right? Close to about 99 plus percentage of IIM Ahmedabad alumni continue to live and work in India, right? Uh, Many a time. So the reason why, see, for example, I also know somebody who has done both, right? So there is an IIM Ahmedabad grad, right? IIT IIM sort of a guy, pursued IIM Ahmedabad, worked for 3-4 years, right? uh, Reported into someone who was, and the story is very similar to mine, by the way, started reporting into someone who was younger than him, right? Found out that this person was an MBA from Kellogg, right? And had a head start. Like, so when if this guy was at a grade, let's say hierarchy, if 10 is the CEO and 1 is entry, this person started at 1, right? The Kellogg guy was already at 5 and had way less experience than this person. And that is the reason why it is there is a global career track, right? So for example, just think about it this way. If you're the if the HO is in your house, if you're the CEO, right? If you see people around you every day, and there are people who are in Kerala, Goa, wherever, right? uh, who are you really going to promote if you find an opportunity? The people whom you know well, or the people who you don't know well, right? The answer is obvious. You will promote the people who you know well. So that is, there is an advantage, there is a huge advantage that you have if you work in headquarters of global companies versus an affiliate market, which is India. So while being in India, we might feel India is very important and huge, but I worked personally, right, with the global CEO of Abbott, which is a $65 billion company, right? This guy would not even think about India, right? Which was a very teeny tiny small operation. So he was like, okay, yes, it's important, it's an emerging market, kind of a thing, right? So don't get me wrong, India is important, correct? But if you want to rise from India, how many global Indian MBAs have been successfully able to make a global transition? That's a question you got to ask yourself. How many people, and let's go only to the best, right? How many people from IIM Ahmedabad do you see in global teams, right? So the answer is very clear, right? If you want to be global, right, you should consider a global MBA. If you want to be in India, there's no need for you to consider global MBA at all, because you've got everything that you needed. Some of my best buddies are from IMA, by the way, right? And they too have pursued executive MBAs from these foreign schools, correct? Because you will see this, that after 15-20 years of experience, you will see, you will feel a need to have a different brand to bump you up, to go to Singapore, to go to Europe, to go to America, right? And this is not being, should I say, dismissive of the quality of our schools. I feel that IIM Ahmedabad ranks right up there in the top 10 schools in the world in terms of sheer quality, right? But there is also a local brand versus a global brand phenomenon, right? You will, if you have the same money, will you buy earrings from Tiffany, or will you buy it from Popley and Company? Same money, right? You will probably buy Tiffany, isn't it? You will probably buy Prada. You will probably buy whatever, correct? So you see where I'm going. So if you want to go global, it's a no-brainer. Go for a global MBA.
Thank you, sir. That was a really insightful answer. A few of our other attendees want to know the kind of work experience they require to apply in the top B schools abroad.
The kind of experience, I would say, should be relevant to your goal. I think that's the easiest way to say it. So I know that you guys are fairly young, right? And it's very difficult for you to sort of imagine that, you know what, this is the career I want to get into or not. but at least talk to a lot of mentors, right? Talk to Madhura, talk to a lot of experienced people. Yeah, I'm happy to have a chat with you as well.
We actually have a whole lot of mentors at Aspire for Her who actually specifically do this, right? They
Yeah,
talk
that's
about
right.
career previews. So
Yeah,
that's the whole idea of having something
yeah,
like Aspire for Her.
yeah, yeah.
So happy to be of help there. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. So even like so yeah, talk to all these mentors. They will help you figure out what you want to do, or perhaps at least they will help you figure out what you don't want to do. Right? Either ways, the list goes down. So the question, if you could repeat me again, sorry, I think I digressed a little bit, but I just want to make sure I'm answering the right thing. Sorry.
Yes, sir. So a few ask, so if we don't have work experience, can we still apply for masters abroad? And if
Yeah.
yes, what are the colleges?
So you can, without experience, you can apply to masters in management. You can also apply to the masters programs in general, right? MS, as they call it. The MS programs could be in finance, could be in marketing, could be in digital marketing, could be in human resources, could be in anything. Could be in data analytics, could be in computer science, right? It could be STEM, non-STEM, psychology, all of that stuff, right? Most of the masters programs don't require a work experience. So that is what you guys will be eligible for, right? For those of you who want to work and apply, you can apply to deferred MBA program. To global MBA programs after 2-3 years of experience after you graduate. Uh, Experience while you are in college does not count for experience. Okay, just as a FYI. Okay, they are talking about full time experience here. But yes, those are the schools that you can apply, and there are many schools. I'm sorry, Naitika, right? Naitika. So there are many. There are hundreds and thousands of schools. So I don't think I'll be justified, but pretty much all the good schools, all the top 50 ranked schools, in either continent, like any continent, would be good bets, right? Top 50, top 100 is where I would say, right? Uh, just also remember there are also a lot of unscrupulous people in the market in India, right? Who will say that you don't have to take the GMAT and the GRE, and we will send you. Just take the TOEFL and go,
Yeah.
right? Be very careful with such people. I'm not saying all of them are con artists, but a lot of them are. And for them, the commission that they get is more important, right? For us, we basically shortlist people, or we shortlist schools which are going to give you legitimate knowledge and legitimate chances of placement, right? You will learn something which you will be able to apply later on, and hence do well for yourself. So be very careful, because there are a lot of people out there, and it's a very should I say, a dirty territory. So go with your eyes fully open.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for that. So one of our attendees wants to know the difference between MBA and a deferred MBA.
So there is no difference between an MBA and a deferred MBA. You still end up joining the same MBA program. What is deferred? Deferred is basically postponed, right? So MBA requires about 4 years of experience. Since you guys are final year students, you cannot apply, isn't it? Right? So the schools have realized this, and for highly talented uh, seniors in undergrad, as they call it, right, which are final year students, they allow you to apply. They will give you an admit right now in your final year, correct? They will hold your spot for 2 to 5 years. In those 2 to 5 years, you are supposed to complete the work experience requirement, okay? And then you simply join their full-time MBA program. That's what deferred MBA is.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much. The next question is from an attendee who is a first year BTech student. He or she asks, from when should I start preparing for getting admission to an elite B school for doing his or her MBA?
A good time to start is second year in general. That's what I would say for 4 year degree holders. For your first years, I mean, you've just taken the 12th, just chill for some time, also enjoy your college life. That's also very important. But I would say for, I think second year, whether you're in a 3 year or a 4 year degree, is a good time to, start researching and starting figuring things out.
Right, sir. So another question is about What are the few important requirements and what one needs to do to get a scholarship in the B schools or the MS colleges overseas?
Yeah, I mean, the answer is simple and complex at the same time. The reason why it is simple is because, I could easily tell you that get the top dollar score in the test, get a perfect GPA, write a very strong statement of purpose, have excellent recommendations, get wonderful internships, make a lot of impact in there. Don't try to build a well balanced profile, and so on and so forth, right? So those are some of my tips for building a very strong application, right? Now, if you do that, you will get scholarship in some college or the other. You just have to be smart enough to not have your eggs in the same basket. If you're applying to Stanford, MIT, Berkeley, Harvard, and saying, okay, I want to get scholarship, you might, you might. The chances would be stacked against not only you but anybody who applies to these schools, right? For that, be fairly flexible. Apply to schools which are in the top 20, top 30. You might be able to get scholarship there, right? The other thing that you must remember, and this is very important, right? Uh, do you guys know that one of my classmates from India who joined the Berkeley MBA program, right? His father was a clerk at a local bank, right? His father was a clerk at a local bank. So you know how much money clerks make at local bank? It's nothing, correct? The point is this is that regardless of your financial situation, you can apply and you can get into these top schools. In fact, Harvard has a policy that nobody should not be able to apply to their school and attend their school because of financial issues. Correct. And then there are a lot of other things that that are there, which you should know, right? So people get fellowships, people get teaching assistantships, people get very low interest loans, and I'm saying crazy low interest. I'm talking about interest loans which charge you around 1 or 2% rate of interest. This is the reason why a lot of, even I would say, underprivileged economic people who are underprivileged even economically can apply and attend these schools, right? The very low rate of interest typically is prevalent in the top schools because it is an unsecured loan. They don't ask you for any kind of a security or mortgage, right? So they're taking a huge risk because their only source of faith is that you have the talent to get into a top school, so they want to support you with a loan, right? So it's possible for you to be able to do that. So let nobody in India tell you that because you're poor or you're not well off economically, because of which you can never pursue studying abroad. That is a complete and a dishonest answer. It's a lie. Okay. So keep your eyes open. That's why you should start a couple of years in advance, right? Because these issues are also important for you to know, right? You have to even convince people, your parents maybe, that dad, I want to apply to a passport, and your dad is like, None of us, right, in 7 generations have even gone out of India. Why the heck do you want to get a passport? There are people like that, right? So the first step is to often convince your parents. And if you want our help in convincing your parents, please let us know. We are happy to also have a joint session. In fact, we keep on having joint sessions because a lot of you guys who are dependent financially on parents need that push, right? Parents have to, they will look at you as a child. They're like, okay, she's got all these aspirations, but you know what, she's what, around 17, 18, 19. How do I trust a 17-year-old or an 18 or a 19-year-old, right? That's why you need people with potentially who can give them that confidence that that is something that you can do. And here is something that I tell people: apply, and if you don't get scholarship, don't go, right? Don't go. The point is, if you get a scholarship, if you get into HBS, if you get into Harvard, Stanford, or those kind of schools, the whole world will find a way for you to attend. Trust me. Okay, trust me on that. So you just go all out. Don't hold yourself back only because of that financial issue that you seem to have.
Thank you. So that was a really helpful answer and really well said how your economic status shouldn't affect your education. So thank you so much for that. Our next question, one of our attendees want to know which specialization has more scope, the PR, HRM or marketing?
Which has the most scope? So what does that mean? If more scope meaning highest salary, right? So I would like to get clarity, Nautica, because it's a very difficult thing to answer. See, I mean, I could easily give you an answer, say that, this is great, this has a great scope and go for it, right? But there are people who are extremely happy in HR, right? And HR probably is one of the least, should I say, preferred function in top B schools in India and abroad. But if you love HR, why not go for it, right? If it makes you happy, if you think you have the ability to become a CHRO rather than still going into finance or marketing and getting sacked after 10 years, it's better to be in HR, isn't it? Right? Because if your heart is not going to be in something, correct, you're not going to enjoy it. Yeah. Remember what Rancho said in Three Idiots, if you've seen that movie, right? जिसमें आपका talent है वो करो आप, and that is absolutely true, right? Look at money, yes. So a lot of people say, you know what, I'm very creative, let me get into marketing. Yeah. Without mincing words, that is complete BS. Marketing does not have creative people. Advertising has creative people. Marketing has quant jocks like me, people like me who live and breathe numbers day in and day out, honestly, right? So one of the worst answers to join marketing is I'm very creative. Marketing is not creative. Advertising is creative. So you've got to understand these little nuances, correct? And people, why do I want to get into finance? I'm good at numbers. So why are you going for finance? Go and join data analytics or business analytics. That is numbers, correct? So the key thing is to really understand these functions beneath the surface, right? I have hired people from these top schools, including IIM Ahmedabad, ISB, and some of these top schools, right? Your understanding of the function has to be very, very clear, right? So that's something that you have to. If you, for example, say I want to go and join strategy, right? Who is going to give you a job in strategy? You don't even know business, right? You don't know how business works. Strategy is basically the path to make growth happen. If you don't know how marketing happens, how customer demand is built, if you don't know how to manage a P&L, if you don't know how to manage cash flows, if you don't know how to resource for people, if you don't have all this functional knowledge, how are you going to build strategy? And yet there are people, people who are fresh graduates who come and say, I want to work in strategy, right? Which basically gives me the impression is this person doesn't even know what strategy is and what it takes, correct? And I'm talking about people who are ISB and IIM grads who give me answers like these, correct? So there is nothing called a good function, but purely from a monetary standpoint, right? Marketing pays better than HR. Okay. Finance and marketing are cross-lined. Investment banking in good times, in boom times, is probably the highest paying of all, correct? Management consulting perennially pays better than most client-side jobs, right? But it is also the sector where people burn out the fastest, correct? After 2-3 years, they're kind of on the client side and they're desperately looking for client openings, correct? So remember Rancho and honestly be true to yourself. If you love a low paying thing, a low paying industry or a low paying thing, if it makes you happy, stick to it. And ultimately, after when you compare yourself with your peers in 20 years, you will probably have done better than them. Sorry, it's a philosophical answer, but that's what I truly have seen and something that I wanted to be honest with myself on.
That's great. So experience is the best teacher here. That's
Thank
great.
you. Thanks.
The
Yeah.
last question, sir.
Yeah.
One of us asks, which country is the best to get into MS or MBA?
Again, it's a similar sort of a question. Which country is the best? Now, what does best mean? Right? Does best mean that you need the best climate where you don't have to worry about anything? And if you've lived in a place which is snow, and you might love snow right now, but when you actually live there and when you have to encounter blizzards, you will hate it. Okay, so does that mean you want to be in a place where there is wonderful climate, right? Does it mean that you get very good jobs? Correct. Does it mean that it offers the best path for you to stay back and immigrate? What does it mean? What does best mean? So the best is the country which actually will help you most easily get to your goal, right? So why you are studying abroad, for example, what is your true purpose of studying abroad? Is it knowledge or is it immigration? Be honest with yourself, right? If you truly want to go and live abroad and spend the rest of your time never coming back to India, and there are people like that in India, a lot of them, right? And it's absolutely fine. You're not wrong in that. But if you never want to return to India once you go out, maybe except to maybe see your parents occasionally or whatever, Canada is a wonderful country because it gives you the best path to immigration. US is extremely difficult country because you're going to be on a work visa. You'll probably be there for about 10 years, 15 years on a visa. Then you get your green card and stuff like that. Correct. So from that perspective, Canada is really good, right? From an economic standpoint, right? If you look at the GDP growth, right? US is growing around 3 to 4%. Now we are in a recession. Everybody knows that, but I'm in general talking about Europe has been flat. So if you want to go to a place where you're going to be getting a higher salary increase, if that is what you call good, correct, then Europe is awful because you're going to get zero to nothing increment in salary. But also remember, the cost is also not going to increase because they have zero inflation. Certain countries in Nordics, especially, and Scandinavia have deflation. The prices reduce. So what you are able to purchase in 5 years, right, will be less than what you can purchase today. It's kind of ulta, right? So that's basically what you got to know. So that's, it's again a very complex answer. I think experience can be a huge detriment in some case, like it is now, where I'm not being able to give you a clear answer. So whatever country is the best is basically that gives you the best chance of getting into your school and getting the best job, and then being able to allow you to do what you want, whether it is settling or returning to India and doing what you want.
Correct. Before we end, we have one question that's been repeated twice and thrice. So I think I can ask that now. If for a work, like as you mentioned, for an MBA abroad, work experience is essential. So how long, like minimum, is the period that one should have a work experience for before they apply for a top school there?
The minimum is very easy. It's there on their website. It's 2 years.
Right.
Right? But what are the odds that you will get in after 2 years? Very low, very slim. Right? So let me give you examples of two real profiles, okay, who applied after about 2 years, 1 month, 2 years, 2 months, right? This person was IIT JEE Advanced All India ranked top 10, okay, had a lot of gold medals, physics and chemistry, silver medal in mathematics, okay, had a perfect GPA, almost a 9.7 out of 10 GPA, had a 790 out of 800 on the GMAT, right, which is only about 35 people all over the world get a 790 score, okay, so it's that kind of a thing. After after the MBA, worked for McKinsey, right, for a couple of years, right, applied to 3 schools, got rejected in all 3, right? Tell me a single thing which is wrong with this profile.
Nothing that can be seen.
Correct, right? So that's basically what I'm trying to say. So yet there are people with 2 years of experience, like for example, Anaga, whom I had again worked, with pro bono, I think 3 years back or so. She got into Stanford. She had 2 years and 3 years, 2 years and 3 months of experience. Was a lawyer. Had a decent score. Had a 720. Had done a lot of impact work. Right. Yeah, she got into Stanford. She got into Berkeley. and one more top school, right? But she got in, right? And the other person did not. Now, if you were to compare the two profiles,
There's
I
no
bet
comparison.
you my bottom dollar, you would have never picked the second one. You would have
Correct.
always picked the first one as the person having a better profile, but that person, failed. Correct. Yes, it is true that this person again reworked after 2 years, right, and then got into Harvard Business School, right? The same person. But the point is, the person did not get in. So it's difficult to get into, after 2 years. So it's advisable. You cannot really make an impact at work in 2 years, right? First year, you're kind of like a baby of the team. You're just kind of feeling your way around. You don't even know what's happening, half the things and all. Then you start getting some responsibilities. You're able to close 2-3 projects. 2 साल इसी में चले जाएंगे आपके, right? For sorry, if some of you guys may not understand Hindi, so 2 years just go like without you doing like a meaningful work. You need at least 2 years. Once you after 2 years, people start trusting you in any organization, right? Then they say, okay, you know what? Naitika has done this fantastic job for Aspire for her. So Madhura is going to give her that those responsibilities after a sheer amount of experience, right? Not after 3 months or 4 months, correct? So you've got to be able to justify that you're a performer, right? The same is true for all these corporates. So that's the reason, yes, it is possible for you to get in, but I would highly recommend you to get your profile evaluated, right? Feel free to reach out to me for sure. Of course, reach out to the CIE team. We can all help you there. But yeah, I mean, I would rather have you at least have around 3 years of experience before you consider applying for that for those top schools.
Okay, so that was great. Thank you so much for the question and answers. So we end the Q&A session now. Anyone who still have questions would want Sir to answer, you all can directly contact either Aspire for her or Sir personally, and we'll surely do our best to get back.
Yeah.
This
Can I
amazing.
answer one more question? This is one
Yeah.
of my favorite questions. It's by
Yeah.
Surbi. And she says, what does the future look like for Indians in the US? Right? So the future looks exceedingly bright. Thank God, whatever happened, happened. I can't wait for it to kind of come to light, which tells you how much I love and enjoy what has happened recently. But the future is exceedingly bright. But keep in mind that the US is an incredibly competitive market. The best of the best, the creme de la creme of India want to go to the US, right? So there is a very clear hierarchy there, US, right? Followed by the UK and Canada, right? Followed by France, followed by other countries. And if you've got nowhere to go, you go to Australia, New Zealand, kind of a thing. I'm not saying people who go to Australia, New Zealand are terrible, but I'm just saying in terms of the hierarchy, that's where people go. So what that basically means for you is that you will be competing with fellow Indians and other people in US who are incredibly competitive, right? So that's a two-edged sword. You get to have a fantastic network, the best and the brightest all over the world, but at the same time, you also compete with them for jobs and opportunities. So with that, I think that's just something that I wanted to share. But I personally love the US. I think it is my go-to place. I always recommend the US to almost everybody who comes to me. But for immigration, if you are patient, US is good. But if you're not patient, you probably should not be applying to the US. And also, if you want to apply to the US, only apply to the top schools. Don't apply to the lower ranked school because you might not get a job there and have to come back to India, which is a horrible thing to happen. Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Wow.
Thank you.
I think we are getting a lot of fantastic messages, and I thought I just mentioned that a lot of people are messaging to us saying that it's a wonderful session, very, very informative. They're thanking us for that.
My
And
pleasure.
yeah, please feel free to reach out to all of us at Aspire for Her. So not only Sumit, but there are a lot of other wonderful colleagues of his and with our other partners who you can reach out to for excellent sessions like this. So Puneet, Sunit, thank you so much. This is absolutely wonderful. Thank you, Sneha and Naitika. This is the first time that you did a webinar like this. Very proud of you. Well done. And all of us at Aspire for Her get chances like this to run the show. and to do fabulous stuff. So thank you very much, all of you. Aditya, you've raised your hand. Please become a member or a supporter of Aspire for Her, and all further questions will be answered by us on all of those other forums. We have a whole lot of forums. We welcome you to join all of them. And let's change the diversity equation of the country. Let's have more girls looking for MBA, looking for great careers in India and abroad. So
Yeah,
thank
thanks,
you.
Madhura. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone. Thank
I
you.
think we can close the session, Netika, with that. Thank you.
And a very best of luck to every student here who attended the meeting despite the exams going on.
Yeah, all the best to all. Thank you.
Thank you.